folks. Happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson. I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Good to have you with us today, folks. Lots of videos. That's kind of our go-to now, but lots of videos just showing Democrats doing crazy things. And it begs the question, how does anyone believe this anymore? The lies are so outrageous. It is so insane. But you got half the country apparently that's ready to pull the trigger for Joe Biden again.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating because as Todd and I watched the news all week, it was just one after another of these viral videos. And I'm like, you guys, you live in an alternate universe. And folks, we're going to need your help to decipher this for how some of these people believe some of this insanely stupid stuff. But before we get into it, I got to give a shout out to one of our partners. So Todd and I, we're part of an organization. We do the Freedom from the Press podcast. We have a series of properties called the American Tribune. So we have theamericantribune.com, theamericantribune.news.com is our general news site. .news is our deeper dive pieces. And people don't know, but the guy that writes most of those pieces, his name's Will. He's been a partner of ours for a while. Kid's actually in law school, and he's taking his final test right now. Super smart guy. The Substack are really well researched, sourced material, so it's a little more dense material. But this week, Todd and I are both from Minnesota, and Will wrote a piece about how Ilhan Omar made it to Minnesota. Like, what's her backstory? Everybody knows she left Somalia, came here and trying to destroy America. And it was funny because Will sent over like, hey, our draft's up. Can you guys proofread it and see how it sounds? And I'm reading this article, Todd. What did you think when you read it? Did your mind just like break?
They try so hard to conceal the truth from you. Like Jason said, we are both from Minnesota, miles away from Ilhan Omar's district. We knew her background very briefly. You hear the allegations of, did you marry someone within your family or not? And that seemed to be like, whoa, that's the real deal about Ilhan Omar. But folks, did you know that Ilhan Omar's father had a hand in the massive genocide that took place in Somalia in the 1980s under, is it pronounced Bar or Barre? Probably immaterial how to pronounce his name. Ilhan Omar has a direct connection to the Somalia genocide, and they were able to get refugee status. They were able to flee the, quote, persecution that the new regime offered up to them, when it turns out people don't necessarily like genocidal maniacs. And the United States knew this, and they said, you can come here as a refugee because you're being persecuted in your home country. Even though, Jason, it begs the question again, how do people... why are they okay with this? Why do they put up with that? The United States welcomed Ilhan Omar and her family, even though they were responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people.
It was absolutely insane. But then, like, her approach to doing things made a lot more sense to me because I'm like, oh, so her dad was a big shot in the military of a very dangerous regime that got overthrown by the population. Folks, you got to go check it out. Give us some creds on this. Give Will some props. It's an excellent written piece.
And Jason, you're gonna read it. This too. You and I are plugged into the system pretty well. We are from Minnesota, had no idea. I would wager 99.9% of voters that sent Ilhan Omar to Congress, and they have sent her back repeatedly at this point, have zero clue. They probably hear the married her brother allegations, and they think these are just America First terrorists making up stories about our beloved Ilhan Omar. They have absolutely no idea what her past includes, what her father did. And even then, I don't even think they'd change their mind on voting for her.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the area she got elected from is full of thousands and thousands of Somalis. I'm betting some of those people were impacted by the actions of her dad, but they have no idea. It just, the more we do this, Todd, the more it blows my mind. But hey, this week, folks, so we got to start out with this first video. This one encapsulated everything that's wrong with the Democrat Party. It touches on all the topics from education, student loan forgiveness. It is truly a remarkable piece.
Woke up to some amazing news yesterday, but according to my local Nextdoor page, other people find it a terrible idea. Hi, Mac. So, I woke up yesterday to a text from my husband that was just a link to an article, he's out of town, saying that all Art Institute graduate loans are forgiven, canceled. Yeah, I graduated from there. I went there for 2 years to get a second degree, and I ended up taking out, I think it was $37,000. Either 34 or 37. I think it was 37. I graduated in 2006. I have been paying the loan back since 2006. I even put a giant lump sum down on it at least 10 years ago. $20,000 to be exact. I am still paying that loan, and I still owe roughly $11,000 on it. So far, I've paid roughly $60,000 for that $37,000 loan. Having that loan canceled means that it doesn't exist anymore. No one is paying it. No one has to pay anything else. Taxpayers are not involved. This is like a little box of things happening, and it's closed. So if you're a taxpayer and you're upset that some people are getting their loans forgiven, I don't understand it, because for me, like, I hope that things are easier for my kids. And for some reason, you guys think that they should be equally as hard, if not more. Why? It doesn't discount what you went through. That's a rant for another day, though, isn't it? I need to stay off next door. To anyone complaining about anyone's loans being forgiven, you have nothing to do with it. So why do you have an opinion on it? You are dead set in believing that your taxes are covering these loans. They're not. The loans just don't exist anymore. They're gone. Like, you're not paying for it. For the love of God, take Fox News off your parents' channels. Just, like, erase it. And see how long it takes them to figure out how to get it put back on. Because, oh my God, they all need a brain reset or something. I don't. Anyway, I'm not paying my loans anymore. But the thing that I'm really most excited about, and literally fuck you to anybody who's mad about it, is that I might get a refund. So.
Where to begin, Jason?
So much to unpack. First, the most shocking part of the video to me is that she said her husband. Because if you told me this woman owns 12 cats and was single and lonely and alone, I would be convinced. So I don't know about the husband thing.
It's so funny you say that, Jason, because right away was it a dog or a cat that got in the way? And I instantly went to, this makes perfect sense. And then I caught a glimpse of a wedding ring, and I admit I was shocked at the beginning of the video. So it is funny that you and I both dialed in on that exact same idea.
Right, yeah. Like, is her husband some lady that identifies as a man? Like, what is it? But let's start with so she went to art school in 2006. So that's like 20 years ago. So you didn't go to plumbing school. You didn't go to truck driving school. You didn't go to farmer school. You didn't go to any school that is going to benefit your fellow man other than analyzing art. So if I'm looking at a student loan to forgive, Todd, should we forgive trade school loans before we do art school loans? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, if you cared about society, the answer is yes. But art school 20 years ago for $37,000. Jason, I don't know about you. And she also made a comment, we need to point this out. This was her second degree. She didn't say what her first degree was in. I can't imagine it was much better. But if she had to go back and say, like, I'm going to go get a degree that has some value, and that was an art degree, I'm scared to guess what she got the first time around in college. But can we break down the math a little bit? I'm $37,000 for art school, already outrageous. I don't know any art major that pulls in more than $37,000. So that's your first mistake. But number two, she talked about a lump sum of 20 grand like 10 years ago, and then she still owed $11,000. Folks, this is why you need to pull your kid out of government schools, because they're not going to teach you Econ 101. I have a almost 4-year-old that I think would understand the math a little bit better. And you said, if you make the smallest payment possible and it only covers interest, you will never eliminate principal. And I think she would understand that. She's like, well, that doesn't make sense. This woman for 20 years has been paying off her loan and still has money to be forgiven. She is an absolute failure.
It's remarkable. And in the comments, we got Steve weighing in. I took out a student loan, paid it off when I was 50, worked my ass off to pay him off. Absolutely, Steve. I paid off my student loans. Todd paid off his. Oh, and plot twist, Steve even went to art school.
All right,
I
Steve.
love you, Steve. Like, you went to art school, you paid it off. I paid off all mine. She can pay it off too.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, we got Peter weighing in. Nobody paid off mine. How about paying off my mortgage? So let's say first you went to art school. You're not you know what? Medical school, schools where, like, hey, maybe you could say a public good. I can totally see something with that. Second, you're going to say this is going to financially benefit us by us giving this person who has not figured out how to pay off a $37 student loan in 20 years. So giving her more money, you think is going to benefit the economy. Like, she going to invest that? Is she going to do that? And I'm sorry, I know student loans are predatory and we should go after lenders and the institutions for what they charge, but man, figure life out. Like, figure out how to pay for your stuff. But then the final thing, and Todd, I'm really going to need your help on this. She explains how the loan is just forgiven and there's no financial impact on anybody.
It doesn't affect you, Jason. Don't worry about it.
It's
close, I guess. Yep. Why are we even talking about it? It doesn't affect us. It doesn't affect taxpayers. Nope. We were wrong. She was right. I'm totally convinced by her manic appearance on this video where she's crying, smiling, snarky. I mean, this woman goes through every single emotion in like 2 minutes. This is not a healthy person, but I'm totally convinced by her argument.
But and I mean, I've really got to ask the audience, like, somebody, and that's why we titled this, How Do Democrats Believe This Stuff? So a loan was created. There was principal and interest on the loan. It was created by a lender, or in some cases, the government kind of through a lender. And then you've made payments, you've paid interest. That's a financial asset. And the money suddenly gets forgiven, which means they zeroed out your loan. And you really think that it just magically disappears into a black hole. This money you owe that was forgiven, you don't think that impacts anybody else. Like, if I loan Todd $10,000 and I'm expecting repayment on that, and then all of a sudden I say, Todd, you don't have to pay me back. Like, I suffered a financial loss. How on earth do you ever reach the point where you can say the loan is forgiven, there's no loss? You think this, if this is a lender that's not the government, you think that that lender forgiving and zeroing out that loan didn't get reimbursed by the government? Like, are you that stupid? And if it's a loan through the government that you owe money to, those numbers are all figured into the government budgets that they keep telling us. And if they zero that out, that's a loss. You caused a loss to your fellow. Todd, what am I missing? Like, clearly.
People, when they think of the government, just think that it exists in some sort of different world, because if it was you and I exchanging money, or let's use a bank as an example. Jason, if you and I went to the same bank and the bank issued 2 mortgages, one to you and one to me, and we both stopped paying them or the bank forgave them, that bank is out of business. It is so easy once you conceptualize this as individuals in a transaction or a private institution in a transaction. But suddenly when these morons get government involved, they think it's all freebies.
Right. And I mean, let's be honest, folks. If in fact there is, like, this money is inconsequential and doesn't matter and all that, why am I paying taxes? Because I just wrote a big check to the government last month to pay off my federal taxes. And if you can just make money disappear and there's no negative consequences, why on earth am I writing the government a check? Although I got to give credit to Arthur or Arnold, the
Arnold,
same way Ukraine does.
Appreciate you coming back, Arnold. Thanks for the insightful comments as always. And Jason,
oh my God,
this is a point to make as well. At a moral level, even if it didn't affect the taxpayers, why student loans? We had another comment pull up about mortgages. What about car payments? What about house payments? What is it about student loans that are so special? And if it doesn't affect anybody, why doesn't the government, quote, forgive all of those loans too? So just at a basic level, if you can forgive one, why can't you forgive all of them? And to your point, if the government can just print money, why do they need to collect any revenue from me whatsoever? And then at a deeper level, this woman does not care that Millions of Americans took out loans and paid them back, worked through school to pay it off as they went, never went to college. The complete unfairness is what really gets at me. If there were no tax issues involved whatsoever, it is still a corrupt and immoral practice because most Americans, by and large, are not getting the same benefit as her. And the only reason she's getting it is because Joe Biden is buying her vote.
Fact check true. They are just.
Oh, and Fally rhymes with Sally. Thanks for coming back, Fally.
Yeah. Well, and I got to say, too, the other thing that's remarkable is when I was growing up, Democrats was the party of the poor, right? They were the party of the working man, the plumbers, that kind of thing. So if you think about who these student loans benefit, this is rich people that afforded to go to college in 2006. These are the people whose student loans are being forgiven. Now, unless you're just bad at life and haven't figured life out by now, like I went to school in the 90s and I went to community college because I came from a poor family. So that's what we had to do. So this is a wealth transfer where they're bailing out rich people who like are bad with money. And how do people not see that? Why aren't you forgiving trade school or the guy that went into business? I talked about a couple weeks ago. We had this young kid who's looking at buying the business he works for doing sprinkler repairs. Like that kid's going to take out like a $50,000 loan to run a lawn care business where he's repairing sprinklers. Like that dude's not getting nothing forgiven. Todd and I fronted a bunch of money to start our business. Like that loan's not being forgiven. But these idiots going to school that think money just appears out of thin air, these are the people that they're forgiving the loans to. Utterly remarkable.
Yeah, and worth making this point as well. Thanks for your comment, Steve. Besides being just a bad business decision, as this woman showed, the schools are the ones that should be responsible for their forgiveness because they charge the overinflated price for these worthless degrees. At the end of the day, this is one of those divisive issues. The government, the elites, they're just trying to pit people like Jason and I and our viewers against this woman out here. At the end of the day, it is all of us against these corrupt elites. They're the ones that made these decisions. Obama got government into the student loan game. And I imagine if they were smart enough, they were probably setting this up down the road like, hey, why don't we take over all the loans? And then in a decade, we'll forgive them in this massive vote buying scheme. But as always, yes, this woman is the problem because she's a moron and she votes and raises kids. But the larger issue are the institutions that are running the show for all of us. In my generation, maybe I'm a little younger than this lady here, we were told that when we grew up, we had to go to a 4-year college in order to be successful in life, whatever success means. And I think in their world, they wanted you going to a cubicle, working for a corporation, working for the man. And so that is who deserves the ire. At the end of the day, we should all be pissed off at them for lying to us. But this woman will not accept that truth. She's just going to say, thank you, Joe Biden, for caring about me and forgiving my loans. She'll have learned nothing from this. She will not learn how to manage money any better. Her life will always be a disaster because she is still a child.
Yeah, and I mean, Steve with another great... Boy, the comments, everybody's all fired up today. I work during the day in trade school at night, spend over 100,000 on my tools during my career as a mechanic to be able to perform my job. How about paying my tools? This is exactly our point. Steve is doing a job that it benefits society. He fixes stuff. He's a mechanic. Like the art school lady, I'm sorry, art school lady, and I don't want to offend any of our art school patrons, but like nobody's getting fed or housed or whatever because of your art school degree. Like if we're going to start forgiving stuff, it should be for guys like Steve. And I want to be honest. I bet Steve doesn't want... Steve was cool working for his stuff and paying for his stuff. Don't know Steve, never met Steve, just going out on a limb. Steve feels a sense of accomplishment that he worked and paid for his stuff. And Steve also is not a moron who thinks money just evaporates.
And he never had a sense of entitlement, I'm guessing, saying, I'm going to go do all this, but I expect government, and really government just means taxpayers, to reimburse me for my efforts. Yeah, no, thank you, Steve, for going out and doing the right thing. This is how most Americans operate, I like to think. Not this clueless woman. And Jason, it looks like she has a nice house in the background. I know she's not paying for that with her art major, her second degree in art. This is probably the same woman that hates men, says men are useless, and will never acknowledge the fact that if not for her husband being the breadwinner, she would be living in some tiny studio apartment or her van. But we could probably go off on all the things that she believes that are completely wrong.
And folks, tell me if I'm wrong. When I saw this video, is this not the living embodiment of what's wrong with the left and the Democrats? Like, I couldn't even, I'm like, other than the fact she said her husband, I was like, this is a personification of everything stupid about the Democrats. And like I say, if money is free, folks, sign me up for that. Like, I will take a refund on the check. And she even said at the end, like, I'm getting a tax refund. I'm like, you are such a clown.
Of course you are.
Of course you are. Ah. Now, well, Todd, do we travel into some race discussion?
I think we should, Jason. And to set this up, how do Democrats believe this stuff? Folks, is anyone okay with racism? I know, Jason, we hear every day about how awful white people are. They're oppressing everybody else. They've got their hierarchy that it also includes men in the patriarchy, because why not throw all the buzzwords out there at the same time? Everyone would have a major problem, MSNBC, CNN, Joe Biden, if a leader, a corporate leader, a politician said, I'm only going to do business with white people. I don't even think we have to imagine the outrage. We can see the outrage in our heads in real time. But for some reason, Jason, when you go the other way with racism, people are totally cool with it. So that is me setting up the video, folks. You just have to take a listen to this.
This is
what we didn't want to happen is to go back to the community. And Jim, you know this, and people look at us and say, well, what did you do? No one on that project looks like us. No one in that project represents us. We did not want to have those conversations. And that's why those tireless meetings that took place on Zoom, it was Microsoft, WebEx or whatever it was, and it wasn't working, and your bandwidth, and you had to turn off the camera or turn off the mic. As annoying as it was, we knew it was for us, by us, to make sure that this community that we represent looks like us. So I just want to say.
All right, folks. Number one takeaway is that she said absolutely nothing in that entire speech right there. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so this was announcing a big Port Authority project, taxpayer funded, in New York City. Now, Todd, what part is she leaving out?
Are you talking about how your tax dollars, if you were in New York and you are rebuilding or refurbishing or upgrading JFK Airport, that $2.3 billion in grants will only go to Black-owned companies?
Or women-owned companies.
Because they need, folks, you need to understand, they need representation. They need to see Black and women-owned construction companies, apparently,
right,
rebuilding JFK Airport. And Jason, there are three losers in the back that we need to point out. Take a look at those white fools back there, smiling, laughing. They're feeling good about themselves, standing up there as they announce, we are handing out tax dollars from New Yorkers, just their tax dollars. We have stolen their money at gunpoint, and we are going to redistribute it to Black-owned and women-owned construction companies. Whites need not apply in New York.
Yeah, and it's remarkable. They hold this press conference, and she alludes to it. Like, oh, people that look like us should be doing this project, and people that think blah, blah, blah. And then if you go back and you read what was approved, because you're like, that's kind of a weird comment. These grants are only approved. And what was the number, Todd? It's $2.3
billion. B with a billion, or billion with a B. I said that backwards.
Right. $2.3 billion to remodel the airport for only Black, minority-owned, or women-owned construction companies. Now, I'm going to say too, Todd, a lot of our viewers work in the trades and work in things. I don't know a ton of construction companies owned by women. Like, it tends to be a pretty male-dominated industry, and it tends to be one of those things that are drawn to that are guy jobs, you know, for a large part. Not saying women
just how it is. That is not a comment derogatory nature towards women. Men and women have different interests. They go towards different industries for their careers. That is just a fact of life. Men work in the more dangerous, physically demanding jobs. And then just a Fran's comment here. I think this was probably a comment from our previous video of Cat Lady wanting some free money. This video is no different if you boil it down. In the first one, the government is giving student loan money back to the student loan borrowers just for free. Free, you and I paid for it. And now in this case, here are more tax dollars given back to the communities for free, as long as you are Black or woman.
Right.
And Jason, I do want to say, if this were a private company, completely privately funded, I don't think I have an issue with this. But because it is your tax dollars and your government, I don't know how there is not a lawsuit immediately to say that this is not a fair application under every legal and constitutional right here.
Well, and here's
aside, but because it is government, this is definitely not okay.
And I was going to say the other thing people overlook, part of why it sucks giving money to the government to spend is because the government spends it very, very inefficient. So Todd and I run a business. We talked about it at the Open, the American Tribune. We have to invest money in digital infrastructures and computers and that kind of thing. And we have to be very conscious of cost. We work with a lot of contractors. We have a contractor that runs our website. We have a contractor that runs our emails and different things. We work with different platforms. We have to be extremely conscious of getting the best service for the lowest price. And as a team, we meet, we go through things. This is how businesses run. And it cuts our overhead down. It lets us run a successful, profitable business. If you're going to say we are going to take the large pool of construction companies, which I'm betting if we pulled the stats, most are owned by white males. And I'm sorry, I'm betting that, and maybe I'm wrong. And if you eliminate that chunk of people and say it's got to be a Black owned or a female owned company, first, are you going to get the best price? Are you going to get the best work? Or are you going to get some? This is why when we talk about DEI and how it destroys things, this is what we're talking about. You are not necessarily going to end up with the best value for the taxpayer and the best work that can be done.
Jason, food for thought. What if some of those male-owned businesses suddenly identified as trans?
Right. Oh man, then I bet they could get a contract. So let's put this in perspective. You get big burly construction worker shows up for his JFK or for his contract. Like, I'm putting in a bid, and it's got this dude that shows up in a dress and a muumuu going, "Hey, I'm here to bid." Like, oh no, you got to be a female owned or minority owned. Identify as a woman. I mean, I'm betting for anybody that
can't say no to that. Those leftist cowards would crumble in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
All right, there you go, New York construction companies. Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. And Fally, like, her family helped build New York City, Irish white. My grandfather helped build the Empire State Building. My father helped build the trade centers. My brother and cousins helped clean up 9/11 build the Freedom Tower. Yes, and now they can't work on, as Irish Christians, if that's who owns a company, they can't help redo JFK Airport.
And again, tying it back into the headline, how do Democrats believe this stuff? Who actually thinks this is a net positive on society when you openly and actively discriminate? When you have a government that actively discriminates against its citizens? And I forget the abuse tax dollar situation. This is just one example of countless. But again, like you said, Jason, the tax dollars here, they do not care what they're going to spend in the end. If they budget $2.3 billion, these companies, because they are not competing against the other companies, will just make up a bid, might do shoddy work, say we need more money to complete the project. And what's the government going to say? Are they going to say, sorry, we only budgeted $2.3 billion? They will just give more money out.
It's
a disaster remarkable all around. But Fally, thank you for your patriotism. Thank you for the show again.
And now we got to move on to this next one because we're gearing up for election cycle. And so the next couple stories are going to be just really bad ideas for the Democrats for re-election. The first one is a little Kamala Harris video. I mean, our Friday's not complete if we can't be horrified. And here's what I'm talking about. Does anybody look at Kamala Harris and think, yep, that should be the leader of the free world. When I see somebody, I want to sit across from Xi Jinping and Putin and these other world leaders and take a hard line. This is the person that's going to keep us out of World War III. And this clip also ties in. Democrats have thrown everything against the wall, against President Trump. The only thing they're gaining any traction on is abortion. So, folks, if you haven't heard enough about killing babies, buckle up. That is 90% of what you're going to hear between now and the election. So, Todd, do we roll out Kamala? Do we just hate ourselves enough?
Here we go. Reluctantly, here's Kamala.
Tell you, you guys are going to have to be ready for this, ready for certain language. And I said very loudly, ovaries. Fallopian tubes, right?
Uterus.
Fibroids.
They're not sending their best anymore. And I think that's safe to say.
I was going to say, just because we love our viewers, which, by the way, shout out to people on Rumble. Last few weeks, we had tons of Rumble views. And if you haven't downloaded the Rumble app, imagine YouTube without all the censorship. Rumble's great. We love using them for our business. But we actually had a shorter clip than like this whole thing goes on and on and on. But folks, imagine, like, I know vice presidents aren't always the sharpest, like, crayon in the box. And I know vice presidents, like, we've had some duffers, like we've had Dan Quayle and things like that.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Yeah, who knew? Oh my God. But I can't think of in my lifetime anybody who I would be more horrified than of Kamala that took over if something were to happen to Joe Biden. Like, can you imagine her on the world stage?
That's when you say, thank God that there are handlers, because no, you don't want Kamala in charge of anything. And when she first got inaugurated back in 2021, I remember my sister-in-law texted the entire family and said, what a proud day. And Todd, as a father of a young girl, aren't you proud that your daughter can now say there was a woman in the White House? And I mean, it's such a stupid comment. I said something at the time, but here's the bottom line. I don't care that she's black. I don't care that she's a woman. I care that she is completely incompetent. Now, I don't care if we had a woman president. I don't care if we had a black president like we already did. I care that someone's going to be in charge, standing up to other world leaders, making good decisions for this country. Kamala Harris is wrong on every single issue. She can't even tell you what the issues are. She's still discovering the root cause of immigration, apparently. That I guess we're not worried about that anymore.
Right.
But you have a vice president who just shouts ovaries and then gets applause. I can't think of anything dumber.
And look at that host that's interviewing her. Like, that woman is down with the sickness, you know? And I'm thinking, if I'm sitting in that room, I'm just over there going, oh my God, one Joe Biden tripping up the stairs away from being the person negotiating peace between Hamas and Israel. Fallopian tubes. And folks, we encourage you to share this content with you, some of your Democrat friends, some of your left-leaning friends. Ask them for us and share with us or our audience what people, how on earth somebody can look at somebody as awful as Kamala and think anything positive that's who you want leading the free world.
I'm close to losing sleep at night over this. How can you look at Kamala Harris and say, I made the right decision voting for this administration?
Oh, it is.
I don't get it.
Truly
and Jason,
remarkable.
I have silly glasses on, so I guess I can make fun of myself a little bit. But this woman, why do they always look like that? Like, their glasses are so big, it covers their entire faces. Like, are they subconsciously or actively thinking, like, if I just put these on, the bigger the frames, the smarter I look? I just can't get past this whole. She's not the only one. They all do this.
Right. Yeah, it's truly a remarkable time. Now we got to go to the biggest story of the week, Todd. We need to get on top of this. It's heartbreaking news. I got to work in as many sexual innuendos as I can, because of course we need to talk about Stormy Daniels and Donald Trump. Now, before we play the video, I want to take a time lapse. And Todd and I haven't even talked about this, so we'll get to discover this on air. Todd, what was your thought about Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky?
If I'm being consistent, I guess I don't care. At the end of the day, I want a president in office who is going to do good things for this country, take care of Americans first. If Bill Clinton's policies were X, Y, and Z, and I got to benefit from X, Y, and Z, I assume they all sleep around. I mean, you can go back in time. I think before like the 1970s, it was just assumed JFK had mistresses, Eisenhower had mistresses. I think FDR, before his lower half didn't work, had mistresses. They all slept around. I do not care. What you do in your personal time, what you do with your personal life is immaterial to me. Are you going to be a steward of this country or not? I don't care that Clinton had all those interns doing God knows what. I don't care that Trump did God knows what. I care that Trump was a fantastic politician and leader of this country. So that's where I'm at, Jason.
See, I was a young man in my 20s when the Bill Clinton stuff happened. And I've talked about my political persuasions. I was always conservative, but I voted Democrat in my youth because I thought Republicans were corrupt warmongers who sent poor white folks like me over to die in some desert. And I remember when they went after Bill Clinton, and I had the same reaction you did, Todd. I'm like, okay, I studied civics, and I think most presidents were having affairs. They were doing extracurricular activity. My friends and I would joke. The thing I was most disappointed in is I would have thought Bill Clinton could have done better. Like, could you get somebody a little hotter than Monica Lewinsky? And I'm sorry if that's too crude, but the fact of the matter is these world leaders and these politicians, why do you think all these politicians that go to Washington, D.C. end up divorced? Because they end up sleeping around and doing stuff. Now, I'm not saying we condone it. I'm not saying we approve. And Bill Clinton did lie to Congress, which that's bad. Like, and I believe there should be some accountability for that. But I remember the Republicans going after this. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You got the old guy that's president of the United States is banging a young, hot intern, and you think this is going to move the needle. Why on earth are you going to prosecute this man? And then in the back of my head too, Stephen nailed it. Look at Hillary. Of course he slept around.
Thought it.
Part of my brain was saying that too, and that was before Hillary really went downhill, and you knew how crazy she was. I'm like, well, So at the time when the Democrats were doing that, I'm like, this is just silly. Or the Republicans were doing that. I'm like, why are they doing this? This is bad. No good comes of it. And now you get the Stormy Daniels trial. So just to bring everybody up to speed, the entire trial that Donald Trump is the thing they're trying to throw him in jail for comes down to a campaign finance potential violation from an affair that might or might not have happened in 2006. So as Donald Trump was gearing up to run for president, word got out he had an affair with Stormy Daniels. He tried to pay hush money. This just in, famous people and politicians pay hush money all the time.
You don't say.
Nothing illegal. Nothing illegal is even alleged in this case. The whole thing boils down to, did Donald Trump, should he have paid it out of his personal pocket or out of his campaign budget? Answer in the comments. Ask that question to your Democrat friends. Most will say, well, you should pay it personally. I can see why they're going after him for campaign finance stuff. No. Alvin Braggs is charging him for not taking it out of his campaign, but for paying it personally. Todd, your thoughts?
How do Democrats believe this stuff? And Jason, by the way, our cat lady artist has been paying student loans off ever since Donald Trump had that alleged affair, 2006.
Right, yeah. We're going to have to base everything on when crazy cat lady.
All right, new timeline. When did cat lady start taking on student loan payments?
Now I give all this Donald Trump stuff a thing because they're pulling him off the campaign trail. It's lawfare. We did a whole episode on this a while ago, how horrible this one is, because Hillary did the same thing with the Steele dossier. They got paid a fine. Generally speaking, if something like this happens, they just fine them, whatever, 10 grand, 20 grand, 100 grand. Literally, the check amount was $130,000, I think. So you think of the billions of dollars spent on a campaign, and $130,000 is what you're going after. The case is falling apart. But this week, we got to see what this case is really about. Stormy Daniels went on and was telling the salacious stories about her alleged affair with Donald Trump. And And with Donald Trump, it comes down to she was talking about how they met. It was 06. She gave graphic details. Did he wear a condom? What sexual positions were they in? All this and that. Now, you as a critical thinker will be like, what does any of this have to do with, should he have like put it out of his campaign or paid it out of his personal account? But no, they wanted these salacious details, and because all they're trying to do is get the story. And when they locked Trump down in New York, I remember thinking, this is a really bad idea. This is like the Republicans going after Clinton, because I'm going to say a lot. Valley hit the nail on the head. He's winning without campaigning. You lock Donald Trump in in New York, media center of the world. You put him on TV every day. There have been videos, and we've shown some of them on here on our Twitter streams, where he's going to these different events in New York City. And like, his big crime is he banged a porn star. I got to say, there's a certain percentage of men that are going to, like, they don't like the fact he cheated on his wife and all that. But you're going to say, I mean, in the testimony, Stormy actually claimed that he slept with her, and he slept with her so good, he like knocked her out. And I'm like, I don't know how much of a stud you got to be to actually knock a woman unconscious.
Yeah, this just in, Jason. Rich, powerful dudes attract women to them. Who knew?
Right.
But then, Jason, can we ask, is Donald Trump the only one to ever use campaign funds or personal funds the wrong way? One would be led to believe that Donald Trump's the first and only to ever have this problem. I don't.
Right.
Otherwise, there'd be so many other criminal cases, I would imagine. It's weird how it's just Donald Trump.
Now, flashback to the AmericanTribune.news, www.AmericanTribune.news. Ironically, a couple weeks ago, Will wrote a piece. Most people don't know there's a congressional slush fund that actually pays money to claimants when somebody in the House or Senate actually commits something where they have to do a settlement because of sexual impropriety. That money is paid for by the government. That money is sealed for who got paid and for what. And that doesn't cost any of the taxpayers, or that doesn't cost the members of the House or Senate any money. Like, that's taxpayer funded. Think of that.
Just wrap your head around that. And then, but Jason, it's so obvious to point. How do Democrats believe this? How do they believe any of these charges against Donald Trump? Every single time, no matter how often they do this, they think this will be the one that sticks. We finally got Trump. I mean, I think we've done the podcast on this several times saying, here are all the clips we've seen since 2015. This got Trump. This got Trump. No, this one will stick to Trump this time. Every single time it fails, because of course it does. It's all lies and BS. People still believe it. They still think Trump's the bad guy.
Now, in this particular one, though, there's a great clip coming out, because after this breaks, and all these smart people on the left who thought this was great, and then all of a sudden this hits normal Americans, and they're like, why am I hearing about Donald Trump wearing a condom with Stormy Daniels? Like, really, is this what's going on in our world? And even for, I think, was this clip MSNBC or CNN? Even they have to admit, like, okay, this might have been a horrible idea.
Roll tape.
Start with one particular exchange, Elliot, that might not have been a welcome one for the prosecution. The defense. Am I correct that you hate President Trump? Stormy Daniels, yes. Do you want him to go to jail? I want him to be held accountable. You want him to go to jail. If he's found guilty, yes.
So, big picture, Stormy Daniels testified in the way the prosecutors needed her to, which was by making clear that there was some sexual encounter between her and the former president. Full stop. That's useful testimony. All the stuff.
Useful testimony. Okay.
That came out on cross, though, like that, is devastating to her as a witness, and the jury, it'll be kicking around in the jury's head. It speaks to bias and a motive for coming out and speaking against the defendant. In their closing statement, they will say, ladies and gentlemen, the star witness for the prosecution literally says that she hates the defendant. How can you trust a word she says? So yes, her testimony was overall valuable to the prosecution, but this really knocked the witness's credibility down.
I want to start.
The porn star is losing credibility, Todd.
I couldn't have imagined that. The one that only came up in the news after it was politically convenient and financially convenient for her to do so.
Yeah,
It's
she actually
weird.
testified to that. She said once Donald Trump was running for president, I knew it was a new game. She's admitted she hates him. She admitted it's money motivated. There's 2 letters that are circulating on letters she signed saying she didn't sleep with him. Oh, by the way, she still owes President Trump like $350,000 for defamation lawsuits. And once again, the crux of the case is, should Donald Trump have paid this money out of his personal account or out of his campaign account? So what they're trying to do is somehow like corroborate, like it doesn't even matter if they had sex. It doesn't even matter from a case perspective if this affair was legitimate. That's the whole thing. And like I say, I'm going to give this for our viewers as you're talking to the Trump stuff with especially your Democrat friends. Say, let me ask you a question. So Donald Trump paid Stormy, completely legal. Nobody's questioning that. The question is, should he have paid it out of his personal account or the campaign account? Which do you think should be legal? I guarantee you like 90% of them are going to say, well, it should have come out of his personal account. Like that's why they're charging.
Absolutely. And that would make sense. Why wouldn't it come out of your personal?
Right.
And then they will be blown away when they find out what is actually going on with this case.
Right. And they don't know. Like these clowns on CNN are talking about this as beneficial. Like, go read the charges. They're available online. This comes down to an accounting issue. They don't like how he accounted for the money. They thought he was trying to cover up the affair, which is exactly what you're doing when you're paying hush money that all politicians. Todd, it just
well, to answer the question of the show, I guess Mickey hits the nail on the head.
We could have probably done that at the beginning.
Low IQ and just brainwashing at this point. And the only question is how much of stupidity plays off of brainwashing. There's a spectrum there somewhere, but yeah, it's a pretty tough combination to overcome.
It is. Oh, now we got to get to one of my
Denver,
favorite.
I think, Jason. Should we do some? We got some screenshots here.
Yeah, we got to go to Denver. So for those who don't know, Denver is an extremely liberal city. And with the Joe Biden open border, a bunch of people are going to Denver because they have all these like services and stuff they're offering. There was actually a lot of time. I'll let you play the video.
I think we have to bear through some of me talking for a little bit, but that's okay.
Giddy up.
Guys, I love to see this happening all over the country. Communities are standing up to the corrupt Biden administration's illegal immigration policies, or they look at the actual illegals, just like New York. Take a stand against woke Democrats, the Biden administration, and try to make a change so their community doesn't completely fall apart. Look at this.
Support one of the largest legal immigrant communities. What is happening right now, this is absolutely a crisis. And to think that this isn't a complete failure at the federal level, and to think that this is going to be put on your local city council to solve the migrant crisis, it makes no sense. Also, too, Denver is a city and a county. They have the funding. They have much more funding than a city like the city of Aurora. And if they want to come out and proudly beat their chest that they're going to, take all of these people, well, Governor Abbott is most likely going to continue sending them. And they're going to have to continue cutting their budget, putting people out of work, and shutting down services to their constituents until somebody with any kind of sense wants to stand up and say, enough is enough. Joe Biden, step up.
All right, so this lady is talking about Aurora, Colorado recently passed some new limitations on what supports they would offer to, quote, newcomers, as the Biden administration likes to call them now, standing up to the Biden regime, standing up to the woke leaders of Denver, city and county, the governor of Colorado, everyone trickling on down from Biden to local leaders. They're all insane leftists, but at least the city of Aurora has got a little bit of sense left in them. And they said, if we remove financial incentives, they won't be here. So that is step one. And as Randy tells us, and as Donald Trump has promised to do, mass deportation. Logistically, right. That has a little bit of things. We have a few things to figure out, but you got to go back. We just can't support you anymore. We have no moral. We have zero obligations in any way you slice it to welcome these people anymore. We can't even take care of our own citizens. I'm sorry, folks. You are on the bottom of the list if you came here illegally. Time to go home.
Well, and I gotta say, so now Democrats in Denver are like, Joe Biden, you've lost your mind. Like, this is a federal issue. Remember, Donald Trump had to fight to get on the Colorado ballot. Like, I'm just gonna say it, Todd. All this insanity, they're gonna just talk about abortion because even Democrats are pissed off about this. But here's my favorite part of the story. We wrote an article about it on the AmericanTribune.com where they were talking about the list of demands. So they went up to this migrant encampment and they said, you guys need to move into a shelter or you need to leave, because they were camping in public property. So the illegal immigrants give the city a list of demands. You heard that right. The illegal immigrants who are squatting on private or on public property, they asked them nicely to move into a shelter so that they don't have a tent city. And in response, the illegal immigrants came up with a list, and there was actually 11 things on there. We've got some on there.
Oh, we've got a second clip. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. Why don't you play the second clip?
Sorry. We've got 2 screenshots here of all the demands.
Yeah. So anyway, so they want to, migrants want to cook their own food with fresh culinary appropriate ingredients provided by the city instead of pre-made meals. So they want fresh, good food to cook. Shower access available all without time and limits, day and time. We're not the military, we're the civilians. Medical professional visits will happen regularly, referrals, connections for specialty care. They want you to give them full medical care, folks, because they showed up. All will receive the same housing support that's been offered to others. Can't kick people out in 30 days. Number 5, there needs to be a clear process for exiting somebody, meaning if you misbehave and you're getting kicked out of all your free stuff and your free shelter, they want a policy and procedure you have to follow. All shelters residents will receive connection to employment support, including work permit applications for those who qualify. What? Consultations for each person, family with a free immigration lawyer must be arranged. So you need to pay for their lawyer to help them fudge the system to stay here legally. The city will provide privacy for families within the shelter. No more verbal or physical or mental abuse will be permitted from the staff, including no sheriff sleeping inside and monitoring 24/7. We are not criminals and won't be treated as such. So in the government paid for housing where we're giving you food and a doctor and a lawyer that we're paying for, we don't want you to have a law enforcement officer in there, because transportation for all kids to and from their school, no separating families, regardless if family members have children or not, meaning you can't split up these folks. They get to pick how they congregate. The city must schedule a meeting with the mayor and those directly involved in running the newcomer program to discuss further improvements. So it's not enough. We're going to house you. We're going to shelter you. We're going to feed you. We're going to give you medical care. We're going to pay for your lawyer, but we will need further improvements. And then the city must provide all residents with a document signed by a city official in English and Spanish with all these demands. That includes a number to call to report mistreatment.
I have a 2-word response to them, but I cannot say it on some of our platforms, Jason.
Yeah, I got to say, Todd, one of these days we're going to do a Rumble only show. We have a lot of people that watch on Facebook and engage, and that's why we still stream on Facebook and some of these things. But every word that comes to mind, I think, would get our pages hit, because I got to say it, go home. Like, what on earth makes you think that you can show up in our country, demand free food, free medical care, free education, free everything? This is the opposite of what immigrants in other countries should be saying. I want the opportunity to come to America to make something of myself. And I will say these guys did ask for a work permit, so that's good. But are you freaking kidding me? How could they? They give the city a list. You should be locked up. You should be sent home.
Your by definition, breaking the law that makes you a criminal. At best, you can get your free meal and housing in a jail cell. How do Democrats believe this stuff? Who thinks that this is okay? Forget even the prioritizing illegals over American citizens. No one should have access to this. This is the same entitlement, though. We got to bring this back to Cat Lady from our first video again, Jason. The sense of entitlement runs so deep in all of these leftists, whether it's your loans being forgiven, whether it's you getting provided everything essentially for free, quote, free. It means you and I, Jason, are paying for this because we have made something of ourselves in this country. Anyone that works hard has their money stolen at gunpoint from them by the government, only to be handed back over to these losers that have no, and especially in the case of the illegals, you have no business being here. You should be saying thank you every day to us for saying, thank you for letting me into your country. I will return the favor and work hard. That is the only response possible from these people. If you list these demands, anyone that signs off on this should be on the first bus back to Mexico. You are the last person I want here. No more entitlement, no more programs. Either do it for yourself or go back home.
Right. And just think, the Vietnam vet who got his Purple Heart, who lost, we've had how many people in America that have fought for or defended this country that really contributed something. I'll even extend to people like we've talked about truck drivers. We love truck drivers. We love blue collar people. The truck driver who's on disability doesn't get this. The person who works oil rigs doesn't get this. Why on earth are we giving these entitled folks showing up to our country, who have not contributed one iota? And you're saying we demand fresh food we get to cook ourselves? Like, it's not enough that you're giving us food. That food's not good enough for us.
It reminds me, we did a clip a couple of weeks ago, Jason, of Marco Rubio talking on the Senate floor. So Cuban Americans who came here 40 years ago, worked and paid into the system their entire life, get less out of Social Security than brand new Cuban refugees in Miami who just showed up yesterday and get bigger checks. They get plane rides home whenever they want to. And he asked the question, how is this even remotely fair or possible? But again, it goes back to the larger point. All of us are getting screwed. All these brand new illegals to the country. Look at all the demands they're making. And Jason, I guarantee the city of Denver accommodated this.
Oh my God. People that know that crazy cat lady at the beginning who had her student loans forgiven, they're sitting there like, oh my gosh, what else do we need to do for these people? And it's because they can just make money and they don't care. Yeah, Josh, we play the clip, Todd.
I got to say, though, Cat Lady would never welcome a single person from this camp into her own home, but she will support you and I paying for this all day long. 8 million, let's bring in 16 million, double that figure, because Cat Lady doesn't think money matters. She doesn't know where money comes from for the U.S. government. Help them all, but just don't bring them into my house. That would be Cat Lady.
Right. Yeah, not in our neighborhood. But yeah, you guys can have them. We got this nice camp over there.
All right, Jason, I think we should end on a positive note.
Yeah. Do we go to the kids?
Let's go to the kids. And I did a video on our Rumble channel earlier, just a standalone video. I think frat boys are going to save this country, Jason. And before you laugh that off, I know people are thinking like, oh, what does a frat boy have to offer? They're at their parties, they're guzzling their beer, they're doing whatever they want in 4 years of college, not going to class. But this might be, as the generation before us or behind us, as it were, as they all grow up, it seems like the frat boys are the only ones in Gen Z that care about this country anymore and still value things like things that are in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the traditional American mindset. And so we've got a great clip here, folks, of frat boys calling out these, as Jason likes to call them, what do you call them? Large cat hair, blue hair, cat lady mutants.
Yeah, last week we did a whole episode going through the campus mutants. And it's like on one side you get these crazy cat lady mutants who just want to kill their babies. And on the other side you have young, healthy men. And Todd's right. I think this is a beautiful way to end the show. Who knew frat boys would be, like, when I was young, like Revenge of the Nerds, like we made fun of frat boys. Now it's coming down to the frat boys to save America. Let her go.
They're challenging Antifa to a push-up contest. This is unbelievable.
What are you going to do pull-ups at? Go do pull-ups on that tent. Right now, if you do more pull-ups than me, you go first.
Wow.
Go do pull-ups on
I
the
never
tent.
thought I'd see this.
Right now.
Antifa is being challenged by frat boys to do
You think
push-ups.
this is about strength, it's about ideas, and I'm built like this, and you're built like this.
I don't know, brother. I bench 225. You bench, I don't know.
They're challenging Antifa. Oh my God.
Come on, brother.
We don't care what you have to say, you fucking weirdo.
You can't make this stuff up, guys. Oh my God, this is amazing.
It's kind of adorable. I think you just bought it.
Guys, hey, thank you for saving this school. You guys are the only ones who can save the school. Unbelievable.
Jonathan Cho,
I love that so much.
It's good to end on a positive note. Yeah, all those clowns there. Of course, they got their masks on. He's got a little speaker to make his voice louder. Not taking the challenge at all. Just looking like complete fools on campus. That is the only response, by the way. You need to mock and ridicule these leftists endlessly.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. Folks, for those who are American patriots, whether you vote Democrat or Republican, people that love our country, we need to unite and stand up against these crazy leftist mutants. Some of them are easy to identify because they still wear masks and they have purple hair and 12 cats. Some of them are like that lady we showed in her first clip who looks like just a normal person. These people believe things that just aren't even real. Like the first lady in the first clip we started with, she didn't even understand that zeroing out alone financially impacts somebody. Like, let that settle in. People actually have meetings, and those leftists in the airport video, the white leftists on the back are like, yeah, let's give just the contracts to the blacks and the women. And they think that's okay. People see Kamala and go, oh God, she could be president. Folks, these people aren't normal. You need to help us save this country by sharing content like this. You need to make fun of these people. And those frat boys show us the way, because we showed a bunch of clips last week. They were calling them racist and whatever, Nazis or whatnot. Frat boys just said, we don't care anymore. Like, you guys are destroying our country and we're going to stop you. So God love the frat boys, Todd. I think they might save America.
4 years ago, this wouldn't have happened in the summer of love. There would have been too much, I'm not going to say cowardice. There was just a lot of consequences, but we have hit the point where they just say, F it, I don't care anymore. This country is getting ruined. My generation is getting shafted. And so as you hit that breaking point, you're going to see more and more courage like this. But God love the frat boys. God
love the frat boys. On that note, folks, thanks for tuning in this week. Be safe out there. Spring, summer's coming. Summer in Minnesota, weather's perfect. Doing a lot of yard work. Make sure you go connect with friends, family. The things that are important. Go to church. Because that's what's going to give us the strength, because between now and this election, things are only going to get crazier. We've talked about it before. Summer of Love 2.0. They've got reports about the bird flu and avian flu and all kinds of crazy
climate change lockdowns.
Like the Uniparty. Finally, American citizens, and even like those people in Denver, they're sick of illegal immigrants. And they're questioning their reality, going like, how as a Democrat can I support this? This is just a horrible idea. And that's why we ask you to share this content with them, because, you know, some of this stuff, these Democrats, as they start waking up, they're going to come to the reality that, like, Democrats and Republican political establishments are both your enemy. Like, average American citizens, like, we know we shouldn't allow illegal immigrants. We know forgiving loans is bad. Like, we know these things. And so the truth ultimately will win out.
Amen, Jason. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in again. Jason, the comments were on fire today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, giving us some feedback here. And we will be back same time next Friday. But folks, have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.